Say, hey, it's Dr. Glenn Livingston, author of Never Binge Again, here with another tip to help you stop overeating, stop binge eating, and reprogram yourself to think like a permanently thin person on the food plan of your choice. I want to talk a little bit more about emotions because I find that people are still relatively confused about the role of emotions in binge eating. And the best way I could put it is that the emotional conflicts that originally set up your eating patterns, they're valuable to explore, they're interesting, and they're soulful, but the food addiction takes on a life of its own, separate and apart from those emotions. And so many of you have heard me tell the story about my mom feeding me a bottle of chocolate Bosco when I was overwhelmed or crying, or she just didn't have the wherewithal to hold me or cook something for me or do something that might have been healthier. And I totally forgive her for it because of what she was going through at the time, and I love my mom. But there was a pattern established where I feel upset or I feel lonely. I couldn't get the human contact that I needed, and so I learned to go to chocolate Bosco syrup and suck on the bottle and go into a sugar coma. Well, okay, that's a clear pattern. But what it doesn't describe is that the chocolate Bosco then takes on a life of its own because it's a drug, because it has, theobromine and caffeine and all these stimulants and sugar and dopaminergic, activity that's stimulated by it. It's a drug of its own. And what happens to people, what certainly happened to me, is that you start going to that drug regardless of whether you feel lonely or heartbroken or looking for human contact. Yes, maybe that becomes one signal that, oh, let's go reactivate that old pattern, but it turns out you don't really need that signal anymore because the fire is raging. You've had this thing woken up inside you. Your pig knows how good that feels, and it wants to go get high with that no matter what you're feeling, no matter how happy you feel, no matter how unhappy you feel. No matter what's going on in the day, it'll do it to celebrate, it'll do it to, when you're too sad or depressed, it'll do it if you're anxious, no matter what. And that's why we need such an aggressive stance. That's why we need to really focus on a very practical method, and why I'm an advocate of being much more of a fireman to put out the raging fire as opposed to a detective to figure out who set it and where the match was struck or what kind of match was struck. They're both interesting, but the second is much more important. And you know what? You can live a wonderful life free of binge eating if you just put out the fire, even if you never know where it was struck. So that's what I have to say about emotions. I hope that's a little more helpful, gives it to you from a different angle. And if you'd like more help to stop binge eating, stop overeating, and reprogram yourself to think like a permanently thin person on the food plan of your choice, click the link. Please click the link in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel because I've got a lot more important advice coming up in a lot of videos. Okay, thanks.